and Mackie.
This is Dave and Mackie's. That's right, on WZZR. Coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. Freedomslips.com, if you didn't know it, is home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations, and you'll find those in the chat room where both Mackie and I are right now. And the website is also a great place to get your merch and support the station that way, or donate. It's really easy. They'll accept many forms of donations, but if you really want something tangible, so they'll mail you something. You can buy something. It's really easy. This is show number, believe it or not, 532.
230 and 500.
And on that bombshell, you can catch us on air, online, or anywhere you happen to feel appropriate to listen to the radio on your smart device. But if you don't want to do that, you can sit at home and listen on a Grace tabletop digital radio. You know, they owe me about 1,000 radios. If you miss Solaris's show, never fear. You can catch it up in the archives for free. You can hear her show tonight with, well, Nish, and it was the Cyber Witch Cafe version of her show. It's awesome. And they were talking about current timeline of events. Very important. It's almost, Mackie, I'm going to say, and this lines up to our second half, when we're going to be talking about prophecies, the Hopi Indian prophecies, talk about how time seems to get faster. And this is also mentioned, I think it was in the Bible, and it's like this thing called the quickening. It's a thing. It really is very important. They didn't say it was the quickening, but certainly the Hopi talk about time feeling like it's getting faster. But did you know that the Earth's rotation is actually getting quicker? And we've hit an all-time record of the speed at which the Earth rotates. And we hit that last month, and we're due this month to hit another record. Because I think everyone remembers the leap second, where we had to add a second to the hour that we had to add for the day. Remember that, Mackie, when we had to, the whole world adjusted their time? Well, we're actually faster now, where that was a bit slow, and now we're going a bit faster. So,
funny, isn't it, if you think about it?
Yeah, I wonder how that's achieved.
Yeah. It's funny.
If we mowed all the mountains down to be just a perfectly flat, polished sphere, the Earth would rotate faster. It's like an ice skater spinning and pulling their arms in. It would be undetectable by most people because we don't feel any of that rotation. But anyway, at least the days would get faster. You get paid more often.
Yeah, that's not true.
But no, you're right there. I'm sure big business would work out a way of going, well, we're not actually getting the right amount of time out of you anymore, so we're going to reduce the pay. Yay. But you know what? It used to only cost $5 a month to go into the archives, but like I said, they're free now, and that's really important. And you can get Solaris's shows, you can get our shows, or all of their host shows, or any of the host shows, from the archives, and it's great, right? You can binge it. They're in MP3. The quickening is from Highlander. Thank you, Nobody. I thank Nobody all the time, Megan.
Me too.
I owe Nobody and I have been swapping dollars on the predictions we've had right recently, so it's pretty good. Thanks, Nobody, in the chat there. Okay. Now, Mackie and I, this is all in all seriousness. You can probably tell that we've got accents. Mine's a little bit more Aussie than Mackie's by sound, but I think we both have quite an international version of what you might call Australian. Mackie can even take us as far as almost every continent in the world with his playful accents. You'll hear
I
that.
don't have the accent anymore. I don't speak the strong German ones. No, that's not
Nein.
course. Nein?
Nein. Guten Morgen, mein Fräulein.
Das Bier schmeckt wie Katzenpisse.
So I don't know what he said then, but hopefully it was a delightful sentence. And so Mackie and I,
That'll be a no.
so sexy und Nein zu sagen. So that's a movie title, by the way. Don't look at it. Okay, so in all seriousness, Mackie and I, because we live in Australia, we've done the research. Australia respects the native custodians of the land. Generally, Australians, people who are intruders, I suppose, onto this space. And as such, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung. And
Right.
Mackie?
The Ruck people.
The Turak people, yeah. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future, and we thank them for the use of their land. Wow. You know, Mackie, every single week that when I say, wow, what a crazy week, I couldn't believe it's as crazy as it is, and then we have a little banter about, wow, who'd have thought it? You couldn't write it. If you pitched this as a movie 4 years ago, it's just getting crazier. Who knew? No one knew.
100%. We are in the middle of crazy town, trying to catch a bus with no tires, and it's on fire.
And I don't even have a ticket.
Who needs tickets? It's crazy town. Yeah, no, but look, it is really interesting how things have changed. And there's one thing I want to mention in a second, but we had a play day today. So out in the park, it's quite sunny, a bit cool but sunny, and talking to parents and how we grew up and how
Cloudless skies, Mackie.
It was indeed, it was.
Weird for here.
It was no, but yeah, same. It was really quite nice. So in the sun it's quite balmy. Anyway, and these are people who are my age, 40s, 50s, right? So they grew up in the 70s, let's say, 70-ish, right? And we used to just play and be outside, and we talked about how the attitudes had changed and shifted over the years to, oh, no, you can't do that. Can't have the kids outside. Can't let them walk home from school. I walked home from and to school when I was in primary school.
Mine was more than a mile walk at primary school.
Yeah. Mine was through a forest, past, no, seriously, past a, I guess what you would now call a swamp. And there
was a gingerbread cottage, which we didn't go near.
Not anymore. Not after what happened to poor old Hans. But
Hans and Gretel.
But yeah, so that was definitely primary school. In high school, no one ever drove me to school. I took my bike, and I had to ride my bike. It was too far to walk.
Yeah.
And then I would play outside all day. I was 5, 6 years old, and I would go home in summer at least when the streetlights came on.
Well, that was the signal to come home. It was a universally accepted signal.
But today, especially in the cities, it just doesn't happen anymore. We just don't have that ease of mind. And this sort of ties in with what Dave said earlier on how time is speeding up. Now, I feel it very strongly. I mean, maybe it has to do with the fact that we're getting older and there's just more stuff to fill our day with. But there's definitely an anxiety in the air which feels like time is speeding up, and maybe it actually is. And this anxiety lets us not rest easy, right? So, like I said, out all day, parents really not that worried, to be honest, and playing. And today I wouldn't have the same comfort with my kids. And I think it's partially due to the media bombardment we have of all the bad things that could happen, right? And that brings me to a horrendous abomination of an act, of course, which is the recent school shooting. I'm not going to go into the details of it. I don't want to question the accounts or whatever, but it's a horrendous act. But there is something.
What have you found in all of that?
Well, it's overarching. It's an overarching consideration. So what is being said is that some 20 people lost their lives, including 19 children, young primary school age children, which is horrific. And again, it's unimaginable. As a parent myself, it's unimaginable. But that's a tragedy, right? In anyone's book. What I find interesting, so a lot of people are outraged, and I understand the outrage. I mean, how could this possibly happen? I mean, this is a good question, right? What has failed here? What is it on a societal level? What has failed? Is it in fact that we don't have, in the States, that is, we don't have enough gun controls? We don't have enough controls over guns? Now, I want to say this for gun control just for a second here. Then I'm going to take it somewhere else. But let's say we did take the guns away from everybody. In America, it's been expensive undertaking because there's in excess of 300 million guns. There's an excess of 300 million guns in circulation in the States. But let's say we could do that, right? Now, recently in Sydney here, and in Australia we have some of the tightest gun control on the planet, tightest gun control, I should say, and most recently, a number of people were killed by handgun fire, targeted shootings. And this is like a gang war, if you will, right? But there were innocents as well that got hurt or shot in a lot of this. So, what we have gun control, Dave. We have gun control. How is that possible? Well, the thing is this, right? What will happen with a gun control activity? When you get all the guns back into some kind of police custody, and then you melt them down, or whatever you do with it, right? Or you sell them to Uganda. What happens is that all the law-abiding citizens, all the people that go, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't need these guns, and then I'm just going to amnesty and I'll just give them all back. And again, everybody has to make up their own mind. I don't want to tell you what to do. You do what you want. It's your life, right? I don't care. But if you do that, right? I guarantee you that all the criminals will still be able to get guns if they want guns. Okay?
Uh-huh.
All the criminals will still be able to get guns. In fact, in Australia, they are still getting guns, clearly, because people are being shot dead. Right? And they're leaving these guns, so that means these guns aren't precious commodities, because the handguns that were used in the most recent shooting were actually left in the burned out wreckages of the car that were used to get away. So they're not hanging on to those guns. They're getting rid of the guns because they know, once I got rid of it, I can get new guns if I need to, somewhere, somehow, right? And this is really where I'm going with this. So all the law-abiding citizens give their guns back. Here you go. And all the criminals will keep theirs and get more, as the case may be. And then you really you're sort of counterproductive here, because you're not achieving your gun control objective. But people say, oh yeah, but it is not the criminals that snap and go on these shooting sprees, which is also true, Dave. It's not the criminals that go on these shooting sprees. It's just regular folks. So what I say to you here is what has failed. There are a number of things that have failed before we even talk about guns. And one of the things that has failed is mental health. We don't have adequate mental health, programs for people. We don't look at all the underlying causes of why these people snap and shoot, right? Why does this happen? Why? And if they wanted to, could they still do it? I mean, I don't know if you recall this, but do you remember the Las Vegas shooting?
I do. So
this wasn't a guy that just snapped. So you can argue that the school shooting that happened recently is just a young teenager. Something went wrong. Maybe he's I don't know if he's got a history of mental illness or not, but something went, off the rails. He killed his grandmother, and apparently a cop, and then went on his shooting spree in which
he set up a sniper's nest.
Yeah. But that's what happened in Vegas. So what happens in Vegas? So this guy
stays in Vegas.
Yeah, that's right. So he carried these guns and ammunition, which would have taken him several trips, by the way, right? To his room. These big bags must have gone up.
All the cameras saw nothing.
Clearly. And then because he targeted that event. I mean, that's why he did it, right? And he was, he set up a sniper's nest, like Dave said. So this wasn't a guy that just suddenly snapped. This was a premeditated, planned out attack. So if you have someone like that, so there are two, I think in my mind, there are two kinds of shooters. One is the postal shooter, meaning something went wrong and you just completely snapped and your mind just said, goodbye, I'm leaving, you do what you want. Okay, and off you go on a killing spree. And we don't know why that happens, and we don't also invest enough money to find out why that happens. And then there's the other
one. We named it so we could park it somewhere.
That's exactly right. But there's the other kind, which is the more, the scarier kind, because these are the premeditated shootings where the person, took a lot of, Columbine took a lot of planning.
Yeah.
Those guys didn't just go snap, right? And if programs had been available to help them deal with whatever didn't go right in their life, it might have been avoided. But so two kinds, right? So
Yeah.
could you avoid these killings if you had gun control? Now, if somebody like that, for whatever reason, to make a statement, to be famous, to, I don't know, because the voices they had told them to do so, I don't know, whatever it is, if someone like that decides to go ahead and plan a terrible atrocity like this, be it with a gun or other means, I don't think you can stop it. Okay, I don't think.
I'm going to say that's the same as the 1% of the 5% who would hack someone. The 1% of that 5% you can't stop. There is no stopping them. Yeah.
So what would they use? They might use arson. They might use they might use a bomb which is filled with nails and balls or whatever. Right? I mean, look at the Oklahoma City bombing. Right? There weren't any guns involved. Right? It's just it gets premeditated. I'm talking about the premeditated stuff. Right? I'm not talking about the snap decision.
Yeah.
If there were no guns there. Right? The initial World Trade Center attack. Most people don't remember this in the 90s when a truck was parked in the basement and blown up, for example, right? So these are, they're called, terrorist attacks, or domestic terrorism or whatever. Well, you can call it whatever you want. They're mass killings. But there's another thing I wanted to just quickly look at before giving you. So the conclusion of this particular point is that mental health is very important, and gun control may be the answer for some of these. I think for the ones that snap, crack, and popple, that have access to a gun at that point, yes, that would definitely help stop. Premeditated, not a chance. But what I find interesting is this: a lot of people got angry with the shooting, as they should. I felt very well. Angry is maybe the wrong word. I felt a number of emotions, but anyway, that's beside the point. So you're right. Rightfully, you feel this, so you want to voice it. So you go, on Facebook and other, Twitter or TikTok, or whatever, and you say, hey, this needs to stop. We need gun control, etc., etc. Outrage, and understandable outrage. Now, this is my contrapoint here, and don't hate me for it, but this is a reality. Dave, how many billionaires do you think there are on this planet, roughly?
Yeah, good on you. Probably 200, maybe 100.
2,668.
Oh, well, I was only one factor off.
One factor off. Now, it's a very large number. And in fact, if all of these people only had $1 billion, right, we still talked about roughly $3 trillion of wealth between 3,000 roughly individuals. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. $3,000 billion. Now, how many children, on average, this is an average number across a year, right? How many children do you think, according to UN numbers, starve to death every day?
30,000?
Close, 40,000.
40,000.
So that's an average, everybody, right? This is not everybody, not every day, and some days more, some days less, right? But on average, every day, 40,000 children every day starve to death. How much do you think it costs to feed a child a day?
$5 a day.
Close, $4.
Oh,
again,
$4.
$5 is close enough.
Well, they got dessert with my menu.
They got dessert. That's right, and a juice cup,
yeah.
A fruit cup rather. But yeah, so $5. Let's call it $5. And there are 3,000 individuals that have $3,000 billion between them, right? And we have 40,000 children starving to death. Now, where is my outrage? Where are my Twitter and Facebook posts? I've got them. I make them. But where are they? And this is a daily occurrence. Every day. Now, the outrage that the cause... So if you look at this from a purely mathematical point of view, right? So the horrific incident of 19 children being killed generated X amount of outrage, right? X amount. Now, the outrage that should be generated by 40,000 children dying of starvation every day should be, therefore, greater by a factor of about 2,000, right? thereabouts. Right? So whatever media content was generated by the mass shooting, there should be a 2,000 times greater media content every day generated by 40,000 children starving to death every day. And how much media content is generated? Well, the truth is none. Zero, apart from a couple of posts, including mine here and there.
I'm going to give some people some context here. The current virus deaths are 11,500.
Yeah.
There's less people dying of COVID right now than there are starving children who die. Only because of food. Huh.
So now, so what is so we don't need gun control, we need billionaire control, I think. Okay. Nobody asks the question, are they starving white or black? So the vast majority of the starving are non-white, but whites are starving as well. And that, of course, is a big factor in this, which it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
And, so, but these are children either way, right? And 40,000 a day. But we're not seeing 2,000 times the outrage and 2,000 times the media. You know why? Because this is human nature, and I hate to say it, but this is the truth. We can understand 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 people die. We can understand that. And we go, oh my God, that's dreadful. That's just because our mind can understand those numbers, right? We can see them in our mind's eye and we go, okay, now I get it. And I can feel the emotional impact. If you say that every day 40,000 children die, that's a number that is completely incomprehensible to us. We go, what? What do you mean? It doesn't mean anything. That's why they say, if someone kills a person, that's murder. If someone kills 50 people, then they're a serial killer. But if somebody kills 1 million, they are conquering a warlord, right? Or a general or hero or whatever. So, this is the difference in perception. The numbers are like that, and I'm not trying to diminish what happened in Texas by any means, but I need to put it in context with the bigger picture, because nobody cares about the bigger picture. Nobody cares at all what happens in the wider world. And this outrage, again, this is what the media, and this is because the media doesn't really look at it either. I mean, the media will tell us this, and they'll stay on it for a week, and then it'll disappear. COVID was really good for months, right? Now I'm talking about the media circus. Now, in Australia, we had briefings for 2 years almost every day.
Yep.
Every day, our state leaders would sit us down for an hour, half hour, whatever, and tell us about the latest COVID numbers, what's being done, etc., etc. For 2 years, every day. Now, in this year, there have been none. There have been no briefings at all this year from none of the state leaders. It just didn't happen, or federal for that matter. Nothing, zero. And in this year, which we're now in May, so that's 5 months in, 2022. In 2022, more people have perished from the virus than in any of the preceding time. But we have no more briefings. There are no more lockdowns or mandates. It's as though there's no pandemic, right? And maybe there never was. I don't know, but it's completely disappeared from any of the news cycles, except for North Korea, which is being hit hard. That's what they're telling us, right? But apart from that, it seems that the world has now come out of the COVID crisis. We don't have a COVID problem anymore. It's gone. It's just disappeared. And of course, it hasn't. I mean,
no, it hasn't. And the graphs don't lie.
Well, but this is the fundamental root of the problem we are facing: attention span, and which little tiny corner of the truth or half truth we're being shown. Okay, if you're bombarded every day with the image of starving children every day, right, there would be activity. Because
be careful, it normalizes it.
Well, or does it? When the coffins came back from Vietnam, right, the media were no longer allowed to show them. All the soldiers that were killed in the Vietnam conflict, the American soldiers, there was a governmental ban on media, right? They were not allowed to show any of the returning coffins anymore because there had been a huge negative impact on the opinion of the war when people actually saw those coffins return.
Oh, that was the first war we actually saw. Well, let's not call it live, but just out of time footage.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, would it normalize it? Well, not if it was live footage of places. Not, you can't have stock footage, not the same footage over and over. There should be cams in these places where people, or not just children, but people die. Okay, so just to give you an idea what that number actually means, in a year, 15 million children die of hunger-related causes. 15 million. So in 2 years, that would mean we would have wiped out the population of Australia.
Yeah.
In 4 years, it would have wiped out the population of the UK. 5 years, the population of Germany. That's what we're talking about. It would take 20 years, admittedly, to wipe out the population of the United States. Okay, at that rate. But 15 million a year. 15 million. What? 15 million. Come on, guys. That's not a problem. And you know what though? There are children living in poverty as well elsewhere. Forget starving to death, living in poverty. How many children in the UK living in poverty? What do you reckon? 4 million.
Wow. Australia,
right? Also, millions and millions. It is. I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Well, see, Mackie, the way I look at it, it's capitalism.
It
is. Because when you've got the money, you don't have to spend it on anybody else. It's yours. Do what you want. Well, I'm going to choose not to spend my money, and there you go. And I'll spend around, much more, but less overall than a regular family. Most of their income is disposable, going to all the bills and the utilities and all the things they have to do, whereas there's plenty of change on the billionaire's stake. There should be a limit to an amount that anyone can earn, and it sounds, you can call me socialist, but I think the only way to sustain capitalism is by putting controls in it. If you allow it to continue unabated, then it actually goes against everything that we've fought for, because it only benefits those who've made it. And capitalism does not support those who have been negatively impacted by it. That's probably the best way of putting it.
You raised a very interesting point there. So you said the ones that made it, right?
Yeah.
So do we all understand who these rich people are today and how they got to their money? Do we understand that? Let me just shine a little light on that little nugget. There are many, many rich people in America, UK, specifically, other places as well, of course. But let's just look at the US and the UK, especially the US. The US wealth, to a large extent, can be attributed to slave ownership. Not only that, in the UK and the US, especially UK though, the slave owners received generous compensation in today's terms, dollar terms. They received a compensation in equivalent to about 40% of GDP, which now runs in the billions and billions of dollars if you look at it today's dollars, right? And they're sitting pretty. So those people, they didn't work hard. They had slaves work hard for them.
And this is storing other people's effort as yours.
Yeah, 100%. And if not slaves, then underpaid workers in workhouses, children in mines. These are the people that build generational wealth for their families, and those are the people, to a large extent, that are still rich today. These are people if the revolution ever comes, you know what happens to them, right?
Mhm.
This is who we're trying. So are we looking up to these people? Oh, look at them! Oh man, look at them! The peerage, the class with the privileges in the UK, but not just in the UK, elsewhere in the world, right? Ask yourself how these people got there. How did these families achieve the status? Is it because they solved world hunger? They cured cancer? They invented the light bulb? No, because they were the most ruthless, for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, the most ruthless cutthroats of their time.
Yeah.
That's how they got to where their families are today. Is that justice? No. Should they be where they are? No, they should not. No, they should not. Am I advocating action? No, because we need more than action. We need a change of global mindset is what we need before we have action. Because if we have action, right, and a revolution or whatever, it'll just do the same thing over again because people haven't changed their mind. People
That's
haven't
right.
grown up. So swapping one elite or parasitic group for another makes no difference. You're just changing. The problem remains the same. You're just changing the faces. You're just changing faces. That's it. You're not addressing the underlying issue. The underlying issue is us and how we view the world and how we think we should act and interact with each other. That's the problem here.
Yeah. So
know?
imagine we've got hyperinflation. Let's have a coup, and then you've won the coup, and you've still got hyperinflation.
That's right. Nothing changes unless we change.
That's right.
By the way, how many children do you think are going hungry in Australia every year?
I don't know, but
Australia.
Yeah, Australia
Right.
only. Yeah. How many?
1 million.
Wow.
One. Now, this is Australia, for all intents and purposes, a first world nation, right? We got all kinds of things, but no, 1 million. Okay? In Australia. Just in Australia. But that's just children. I mean, we haven't even talked about the adults yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? That's just nuts.
And then we have the elderly, and we have healthcare, and you start thinking about where all of this goes. And look, there is. This isn't the only way to operate within capitalism, because it's meant to be all good ideas are rewarded, and money is the ultimate goal, kind of like Monopoly. And that's great, but if you've ever played Monopoly, there's one winner, and everybody else loses. So is that what we support? Because what's really interesting, Mackie, there was a tweet. There was first AOC. We all know who that is. AOC tweeted saying, basically hating on billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And now that was directed at Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, who would you trust more, a politician or a billionaire?
I think that's a trick question.
Right. So AOC threw it to her people when around about 70% of the respondents supported politician, which is very interesting. However, this is Elon's argument was that the inventions and the moving the nation forward, not kind of prosperity, but everything else that was benefiting society was all on the hands of the billionaire. And look, that's what he's doing. He's attempting to get us off this planet in case something hideous happens. I think that's the perspective he's made. He goes, when did the government make electric cars? They didn't. He said, I did. In all of the things that, in all of the claims that she'd made historically, he answered each one of them. I'm not saying that I'm an Elon Musk fanboy, but in this context of this conversation, wow, I think it's the system that we've been born within, that we're incapable of seeing the walls, if you were to look at it from the outside, it's clearly flawed. And I'm not sure if there's a system on the planet that exists that benefits everybody without corruption.
So,
No.
so there isn't one today.
No,
That's
there isn't.
the truth.
No. Now, the
Do we need one?
Yes. WEF has been talking about a totally trackable grid of digital currency, a new world currency, a new world order, which they're currently building like it's blocks like Lego. They'll get to it in the end. All of that strategy that they've got, I'm not saying I totally trust any of them, but it's a huge departure from where we're at, is their design. And that it would require the buy-in of the entire planet to make it 100% successful. Without that, I fear already that we're not going to get the Soros vote. The Zuckerberg's already in it, and Bill Gates is already in it. But Soros, yeah, he's a member of the WEF as well, and he supports it. But there are countries, Mekki, that resist, are attempting to make their own version of it right now.
But this is where I have the problem, right? If people like that are making these suggestions, right? These billionaires, right? And look, you have to be a certain kind of person to make it to that. It's the same. So in our society, in our civilization, you have to be a certain kind of person to make it to the top of politics, of business, and it's not sports and arts. That's completely different, or to some extent at least. But in business and in politics, you have to be a certain kind of person. It's not the kind of person I want to break bread with, but it's what it is, right? Some few exceptions, always, of course, but the vast majority, I think I'm right. Now, if you've got these people sitting down trying to map out the future, you can guarantee, you can rest assured,
self-serving future.
They're going to be
just calling it,
right? Because they have. I don't think they have our best interest at heart.
None of our interest at heart, Mekki.
So exactly. So it's how is this? It's like putting a wolf in charge of managing your chickens.
Yeah.
Or sheep, or whatever whatever analogy you want. You know, it's like saying, oh no, actually, I've got a better one. You're putting Hitler in charge of the Jewish League for Reconciliation. There you go. That's a good idea. No, it's not. It's a dreadful idea. But this is what we're doing here. We're looking at the worst human beings that we have on the planet, and can you map out the future, please? You map out. No. We trust you. You know who should do this? People that have spent their lives dedicated to others. Now she's dead now, but Mother Teresa, I would take her input. I said, what do you think we need to make a better society? Now, this is a woman that spent all of her years looking after the lowest of the low in Calcutta. Okay, the lowest of the low, and not even her people.
What about the poorest? Imagine if the poorest people that had the least amount of stuff.
Yeah. So think about all the people that are actually doing things. Fred Hollows. Now, who's Fred Hollows? Yeah. So he was a doctor. He was an eye doctor. He was an ophthalmologist. And what he did, he pretty much traveled around Asia for the most part, not just Asia, Africa as well. And he performed a very simple, very cheap eye operations, which restored the sight of thousands of people.
He removed cataracts. Yeah.
Yeah. These people would not have had access to this kind of medical treatment in their native surroundings. He just did it for free. Yeah. And they would have been blind or partially blind at least, right? But no, not what he did. He went out and did that. I know personally.
His catchphrase, an eye is an eye.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, 100%. And he just did that for free. There's now a foundation called the Fred Hollows Foundation, which continues his work. I know personally of a doctor, but I'm sure there are many, of a doctor who spends his free time, his holidays, in Southeast Asia. Yep. Essentially working in clinics there for free. And he has, had a number of fundraisers which brought life-saving machinery to places in Southeast Asia to help children. Specifically.
Some nursing staff that has looked after my daughter has also done the Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah. So just to be clear, right? So that there are people like that. And that's awesome, right? Now, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be dramatic like this. I mean, you can. I'm sure you can think of good people that that actually get a kick out of helping others, or just feel this innate
need,
compelling force, right? To do this. So those are the kinds of people, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That we should ask, hey, how should we structure this world better? How should we make this a better place? Not the people that want to have the power, that somehow, let's not look at the methods too closely, somehow got into the position of money and power, right? So those are not the people. Nobody that wants power should have it.
Yeah.
Nobody that wants to rule should rule. Okay, and if you can see, this is where it all falls down for me. Because if you can accumulate billions and billions of dollars of personal wealth, and you're okay with, children starving to death every day, then how could you possibly be the person that I want to put in charge of formulating the future?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Right? That's probably the most solid point right there. Don't you start nobody. I can see what you've written. So yes, I think the clue here, I think the resounding yes from us is that we think there certainly needs to be change in this world, a governance change, a monetary change. There isn't a system currently, or one that's even been planned by the WEF, that is the best way forward. I'm sure that there is a kind of a Star Trek thing where there is no money.
That'd be awesome.
Right? Where we all contribute, because when you contribute, maybe you just get, replicator rations or something like that, and that's enough. That's enough. Yeah. I think art, certainly, when you watch art in history, developed, failed, rose, and societies without art fail. So it's one of the little canaries in the mine as far as how strong a society is to the leisure time that's available for good art. I know I sound like an art student first year in 101, the first day, coming home and telling my parents how awesome art is. But that is a true canary in the mine measure of how civilization is going.
I agree.
We need to see more of it, and I think we need to have more leisure time. And I think the way that everything's going with all the food that's being, all the mishap in our current, just-in-time shopping experience and the distribution of food and wealth is so weighted towards those who have money that it's ignoring everybody else. And that's the real shame. We have the potential to do this right, but there's no money in it, Mickey.
See, and see, just what you just said, that this consideration shouldn't even be a consideration, but of course it is. You're right. Now, and I hate to say this because we've beaten this to death with a stick, this particular horse, and we're still beating it. The monetary system, our financial system, the banking system, fiat currency, fractional reserve lending, all of that is a complete fantasy. It's fiction. It doesn't. None of it is real. I mean, I will ask this question one more time because I've asked it like about 1 billion times already. All these nations owe money. Everybody is talking about the national deficit, and we owe this and we owe that. We got to service our debt. Who do we owe this money to? Who are the people that we owe all this money to?
They are.
Well, yeah, exactly. So who are these folks? Because somebody has to be it. Somebody has to be that everybody pays their money to, right? Because a country, a nation should be able to issue its own currency, right?
Yeah.
That's not how it works, though. That's not how it works. Most nations go to a central bank, which is not part of the federal or the governmental structure of that country, and says, hey, here's a stack of papers, $1 trillion worth, that says, I owe you $1 trillion. Now go print my money. Print my money.
Yep.
Why am I getting those guys to print my money? I want to print my own money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the government. I don't want someone else to print my money. And then not only that, but I owe these people now this $1 trillion. Now where did they get that money from? Nobody really. So okay, they're printing money for me, right? They got the machines and the paper or whatever, or the computers to put all the zeros in. Where did they get all that money from? It doesn't even exist. The answer is, of course, rhetorical. The question is rhetorical. The answer is clear. It doesn't exist. The money doesn't exist. They make it up. They make it up. But because the government said, I owe you whatever, right? Whatever amount of money, it has now become a reality. Because the government said so. The government says, I owe you $1 trillion, here are the bonds, right? You can now use that to sell to people. Like China bought a whole bunch of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
From America, that is. But it has no basis in reality. It doesn't exist. It is the most amazing scam. And these economists and these financial people, they will argue circles around you. They will, confuse you with jargon and technical terms, blah, 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 blah. What it boils down to is everything that we think is real in the monetary sector, in the financial sector, is a fiction. It's completely fictitious. It does not exist. It doesn't. But nobody knows this, and nobody wants to know. There was a beautiful conversation about a couple of months ago. We spoke about this here, where this was on the Drum, an Australian news, I guess, analysis kind of roundtable, and there was a financial expert on there, and he goes, "Money is fictitious anyway; it's not real." And at the host, she had this nervous giggle, like the giggle that you have for like you're a really religious person, and someone says God is dead, right? You go, what? It's like what a nonsense thing to say. God is not dead. What a nonsense thing to say. And similarly, Arnold, what do you mean money is not real? What are you talking about? I got money in the bank. What are you saying? Hang on, I worked all my life. I worked very hard to get this job. I got paid a lot of money, and now you're saying it's not real. What do you mean? Now, both are correct. Money is only real because we give it meaning, because we all agree that it has value. But if we didn't agree on that, if we said, no, you know what, it doesn't. No, it's not a medium of exchange that I accept. As soon as people stop accepting money as a medium of exchange, it's just a piece of paper or plastic or zero in the computer. It doesn't matter. Okay? Now, this is where we are. This is the society we live in. It's a complete fiction. And it's a fiction that was created by the parasites in order to sustain their parasitic life. It is really beautiful. It is ingenious. If I had thought of it, I'd be very proud. Of course I would. Because it is a genius system. If you don't want to work ever, right, and you just want to have immeasurable wealth, it's exactly the system that you need to put in place. That's where we are. Like the emperor's new clothes. There are no clothes. The emperor is naked. The emperor, in fact, it's got a skin rash. This is where we are. Okay.
But I love the leader.
I love the leader too. In fact, there is no emperor. Right? Oh, the emperor doesn't have any clothes. Yeah, that's right, because there is no emperor. There's nobody that actually is in charge of this. Because once you start digging down to it, there is no ultimate responsible entity. Okay, it is all buried completely in this labyrinth of deception. The Byzantines couldn't have had a labyrinth more elaborate. I mean, the labyrinth where the Minotaur was kept on Minos, it couldn't have been more intricate. Until Theseus went and chopped his head off, I guess. So who's chopping off the head of our Minotaur, right? Who's going down into the labyrinth to figure out what's what? Who can make the change? That's my question.
That's a very, very good question. And so, look, as Mekki and I'm just going to roll this, Mekki, to the end of the top of the hour.
Roll.
All right. So, as Mekki and I have said, and there's some people in the chat room that have been conversing with us, nobody in particular See how I did that? This is about what the Great Reset looks like. This is about what Agenda 21 is. And it is about automation changing the way that we operate as a society. If we don't have jobs because automation has taken our jobs away, there was a pre-prepared plan, and the Great Reset adopted climate change and they published it. And that was, once we saw that no one was outside doing things, the nature came back to the cities. Dolphins swam in the canals in Venice. It was rather swift at how everything kind of cleaned up. Carbon emissions were way down. So they adopted these two plans together. I'm not saying it's right. But the plan, even in Agenda 21, is that there's only 500 million people on Earth, so that there is still a gap between the rich and the poor. Well, it would be the rich and everybody else. Then you can't do this all of a sudden, because all of a sudden means you start to lose services and you cause too much disruption to the current system. If you're a billionaire, you don't want to be one of the people without money at the end. Losing electricity and collapsing society means that you don't have anything. You're just as worthless as the rest of the people. Being able to maintain at least some order, keeping politics and police and health in place so the society can continue and all of the services that are provided to everybody, is the only way to perpetuate the next layer or the next evolution of our society. That is the hardest thing for them to achieve. Mekki and I have discussed this at great length, and war is too costly. There's too much money spent on war, weapons, blah, blah, blah. Viruses are very cost-effective, probably the most cost-effective. But how do you get it from 7.7 billion to 500 million? That's losing, 7.2 billion people on the planet. It's just crazy. How are you supposed to do that and still keep society rolling? Imagine how much trouble there'd be if that was overnight. You wake up tomorrow and there's almost no one alive. Wow. Power would be lost, money would be lost. So it's intriguing for Mekki and I, witnessing what's going on, knowing what the plan has been all of this time, and how this could ever be orchestrated is the big question. And as sitting as commentators, watching the field of play and commentating on the movements of money, the collections of we call them the stakeholders, because the WEF named themselves as stakeholders in the new economy, in the Earth 2.0 economy. And they've created a stakeholder system of governance where they're the ones who are policing it and not politics. This is crazy. This is a new place. It's a new world, and that's the top of the hour. There's the music. It's only a very short break, and then Mekki and I will be back to talk about prophecies. Part 6. Part 6 it is. We'll see you there.
Listen to Revolution Radio at Freedom.